You're going to learn all about how to prioritize and focus on your most important tasks each day. I don't know about you, but if I let it happen, my day will get filled up with non-essential activities and other people's priorities. At the end of some days, I realize I barely got anything done that I would consider truly important. But we're going to fix that for you today. I'm going to walk you through a timeless prioritization framework from author Steven Covey. I believe people call it simply Covey's 4 quadrants, and it's a powerful tool. If you begin to think this way, you will eliminate almost all of your issues around prioritization. And the 2 key axes that make these 4 quadrants are things that are either important or not important, and things that are urgent or not urgent. The first step is to prioritize your tasks by focusing on the things that are truly important, but not necessarily urgent. These are your future-oriented, long-term priorities, but there's no immediate deadline that's pushing you to work on these priorities right this second. These are usually your process-oriented tasks where you chip away at something a little bit each day, like writing a book or starting a podcast or a YouTube channel, getting an exercise routine going, clarifying your vision for life, building relationships, learning new skills for the future. Important but not urgent tasks are all about creating things that last for the long run. They're the big goals and priorities that we can never seem to get around to doing because our days are filled up with other immediate pressing activities. The advice is to block out time on your calendar for your important but non-urgent priorities. If you work on these each day for, let's say, even 30 minutes for long-term projects, you can make a huge impact on your top priorities. For example, when I wrote my first book, I worked on it for 1 hour per day, and I didn't even open email until I did that. I sat at a special desk where I focus on writing alone. I worked on a schedule, and I blocked that time out on my calendar. And then you really have to protect that time. I've had numerous people over the years who like to start their day by going to get a cup of coffee with a friend, and I can certainly appreciate that. And I've done that once in a while because we all need to invest in our friendships as well. But when I'm writing a book or creating a course, I assertively protect that blocked out time. I prefer in the morning. And if someone wants to meet during that, like on Zoom, I basically don't do it unless there's an actual crisis that truly needs to be handled immediately. So what I personally do is look at my overall life priorities around things like relationships, long-term projects, and health, and I put those important but not urgent items on my calendar each day. There's an expression out there, show me your calendar, and I'll show you your priorities. Put it on your calendar, and that will simulate an urgency. And if it's not on your calendar with a specific time to get it done, then it probably won't get done. Now, I mentioned the word crisis a moment ago, so let's talk about the next box as we learn to prioritize. This is the important and urgent quadrant. Some things you simply have to deal with as they come up. These are crises or key deadlines that can't be pushed. These could be serious and unexpected problems with legitimate potential downsides. In terms of crises, sometimes people's health or safety is at risk, and you can't necessarily see that coming. If my wife is not feeling well and needs a ride to the doctor, that's now my urgent and important priority. But not everything in this bucket is unexpected. You will often have some advanced notice. My son recently applied to college and needed some extra help because the deadline was approaching, a deadline we saw coming. That's both urgent and important. And when you see deadlines coming like this, make sure you don't fill up your calendar with all of your normal routine activities that will prevent you from working on these important and urgent tasks. It's not very likely you'll be able to squeeze in all of your regular stuff in your life when urgent and important issues come up. You can often anticipate and make space for these when it's possible to see them coming. At the end of each semester, for example, I teach college and I try not to schedule too many meetings or dentist appointments or do corporate client work because I know right at the end, there'll be about a week or two where I'm grading final papers, final exams, and turning in those grades on time. Those are urgent and important tasks that I have to clear and make extra time for. But in reality, the number of important and urgent tasks like this should be fairly limited. In most cases, you should see these coming from a long way off because they are by definition important. There are always urgencies and surprises in life, but if you feel like you're constantly putting out fires and responding to emergencies all the time, let's talk about the next bucket. This is where our urgent but not important activities fill up our day. And this box would be things like some meetings, especially meetings where there's no agenda or it's not clear, or one of those standing meetings that's on the calendar as a norm, but there might not be anything to talk about that needs a decision or anything that's really pressing. Many phone calls, lots of Zoom calls are not that important in my experience. My default policy is to have no meetings unless it's absolutely necessary, or obviously if somebody above me in my chain of command at the university is requesting the meeting. Sometimes other people might feel an issue is important and urgent to them, but that doesn't necessarily directly involve us at all. The key is to contain this quadrant, limit its influence on your daily life. By far, for example, the worst part is that if you give in, if you return that first email, then you start to get involved in someone else's drama. It's very likely there are going to be a lot of emails after that, more drama. I used to think, I'll just quickly respond to this message, I'll get it off my plate, and then I'll be done with it. But the most likely result by taking any action on something that's not important, especially if it's someone else's meeting, email, drama, is that I get pulled into it even further and it occupies even more of my time. And so the key, obviously, is to get better at knowing the difference between urgencies that are actually important and those that are not important, at least not important to you. And then you do whatever you can to create boundaries to protect yourself against that. And in the last bucket, I've noticed that many people, including myself, can get very distracted by tasks that are neither important nor urgent. In this bucket, I would put most personal social media use, most requests to, quote, jump on a quick call from salespeople or people on LinkedIn. Those typically are not that urgent or important to me. I worked with some people in years past who I would guess spent about half of their time on activities with almost no real value in the long run. They would sometimes come to my office and interrupt me and talk about whatever gossip or hot topic was on their mind. At meetings, they bring up totally non-essential side topics that are not on the agenda. They would debate and pick fights with people and get fixated on things that didn't really matter much or that they had no control over. Now, hopefully that doesn't describe you, but we all have something. And I'm sure without too much effort, you could probably identify the kinds of activities you get involved in when you're procrastinating, when you're tired, when you lack motivation. In some way, we convince ourselves that these non-essential activities somehow count as work, or at least we're staying busy. But let's be honest with ourselves, most of this does not necessarily add up to anything of lasting value. So I suggest you identify your top 2 or 3 time wasters and eliminate them. For example, I've written 2 books as of when I posted this video, and in both cases, I deactivated my Facebook account for 1 year to write each of those books, because for me, personal social media use is my biggest non-important, non-urgent time waster. So to master how you prioritize your tasks, almost eliminate those non-important, non-urgent tasks. Here's another look at Steven Covey's prioritization framework, the 4 quadrants. I literally use this framework every day to make my plans. To boil it all down, the big takeaway is to prioritize your life and your daily calendar by making sure you work on what is important to you. Make time for those things and then protect that time assertively, and do your best to reduce the influence of those unimportant activities. If this is the first time watching one of my videos, I invite you to take a deeper look at my channel. You could also visit my website that focuses on communication skills, leadership, and public speaking. There's an entire page of free resources on my website, including a free mini course on the top 5 essential communication skills that all professionals should have. Until next time, thanks, God bless, and I will see you soon.